What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Paranormal Rush Hour. I'm your host, Ryan Rush, and I really appreciate everybody joining me today because I have got something to talk to you guys about. This is a really, really weird account of something that happened in Afghanistan involving our military. And I have actually heard an account from somebody who was there of this happening. So I'm going to also tell you guys about that. It's really strange. But anyway, I really appreciate all my new subscribers, and anyone who hasn't subscribed, please do. I would love to have you here joining us at the PRH. No, I really do appreciate everybody who has started watching and who has kept watching, and all you guys, I really, really appreciate it. All the positive comments and support and encouragement and all that stuff that you guys give me, it is very, very appreciated. So anyway, let's get to this because this is a weird thing, and it ties into a lot of other lore, so to speak. Anyway, the Giant of Kandahar. Okay. Back in 2002, this was an incident that occurred, and L.A. Marzulli is best known for bringing this to light. The way that occurred was Stephen Quayle. Okay, he's pretty well known for his, he's got a lot of biblical views on things that he's outspoken about, but he also is very into the subject of giants and Nephilim and other things, but ancient civilizations and stuff like that too. But anyway, Stephen Quayle was on Coast to Coast AM back years and years ago, and he was relaying the story of the Giant of Kandahar because he had gotten contacted by someone who had told him about it or something like that. Anyhow, so when he was on Coast to Coast, someone heard him, and he was a C-130 pilot, actually, is what he said, for the that actually transported the cargo. This was pretty much the introduction into the story of the Giant of Kandahar. Now, what happened after that was L.A. Marzulli decided to pursue this story further because he had heard Dan Quayle. There's a Dan involved in this story. I think that's why I said that. Anyway, Stephen Quayle on Coast to Coast and talking about this story and stuff like that. So L.A. Marzulli got interested in this, and he began looking into it. Well, his producer, Richard Shaw is the guy's name, was doing an interview on another radio show, and he mentioned the story about the giants, the Giant of Kandahar, and someone called in to the show. Well, after the show, Richard continued this interview with the caller, and the caller turned out to be one of the shooters who actually killed the Giant of Kandahar. And L.A. Marzulli spoke to this guy like several times on the phone. He really grilled this dude to see if this story was true. He didn't want to be reporting on anything that was fabricated, and this guy, he concluded that this guy was telling the truth. This guy was a veteran. He was in Afghanistan. He was a Green Beret, and he was telling the truth about all of this. And L.A. Marzulli decides to get him to be interviewed on camera completely anonymously. He refers to him in the interview. It's on his Watchers 10 DNA is what the series is called, the Watchers, or Watchers. But it's on the 10th one, the 10th edition. It's called like DNA. And that's what he featured it on. And L.A. Marzulli decides to go and get this guy to interview on the Watchers series. So he refers to him as Mr. K. Mr. K decides to do the interview. This guy tells the story of what happened in Afghanistan. And he's not making this up. You can tell. He's a soldier. When you hear him talk, even though his voice is altered and his identity is completely concealed, completely hidden, he is totally anonymous, he really is telling the truth. Okay? You can tell. Now, this is the story. Okay, I'll relay it to you guys the way that he told it. They were, well, I'm not word for word, not verbatim, but you know what I mean. I don't want anyone to say, well, you lied, Ryan. You said that you were going to tell it the way he told it. I'm going to do my best, okay, to get all the pertinent information to you. Okay. Anyway, I'm just messing around though. I know you guys aren't that petty. Most of you anyway. I'm just kidding. Anyway, all right. So there was a team who went missing. It was like a scout team or something like that. That went missing. A unit did not return for their checkpoints or anything like that. I think they missed like 3 checkpoints, and they decided that something happened to them and they needed to go check it out. So they call in a special forces team of Green Berets to go out and find this missing unit, locate the missing unit, and report back on their status, either assist or whatever else they do. And anyhow, they get out there to their last known location, and they go there. It's like a mountainous region out there in Afghanistan that they go to outside of Kandahar. And there's a lot of caves. And they see this one well-worn path leading up a mountain. And it looks like a goat trail or something like that, because there's goats all over the place down there, evidently. And he said that they went up, followed the path, went up the trail, and there was this little outcropping. It was like a plateau type thing. And there was a cave, an opening to a cave. He said, well, he noticed bones laying around and just weird stuff, rocks that were placed, looked like purposefully in places around the edge and stuff like that. And he noticed also some of United States military comm equipment that was laying on the ground, like broken pieces. They saw broken, like torn up uniforms and stuff, and they could identify from the patches on the uniform that it was indeed the missing unit, or the uniforms and stuff was from the missing unit. So they knew that something had happened there, and they thought it was an ambush. So they got prepared for whatever was about to happen. And they said one of them caught movement inside the cave. Well, they see something in there, and all of a sudden, something comes running out of the cave at them. And it's this giant man. The guy says he's about 12 to 15 feet in height. And he has scarlet red hair. Like long scarlet red hair. He said it was down past his shoulders. Really long beard. And he came out dressed in like a loincloth. Like old school looking garb. And he was carrying a pike, like a spear, and a shield. Okay, like primitive weaponry. And this guy starts coming at them, and he skewers one of the guys who started firing at him. Dan was his name. He skewers Dan, he said, and lifts him up on that, spear. And then he said he starts coming after more. So they start laying down fire, they said. And all of a sudden, he said it was like their training kicked in or something, and they just start firing away at him. He said they had M4s, 308s, and Beret 50s. So they start firing on this giant, and they are just lighting him up, like right in the face. Just bam, 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 bam. And he said they actually shoot like the lower portion of his face pretty much off. And they end up killing him. He said it took all of about 30 seconds, and he said they were just, now they had like, I think there was like 6 guys or something, all firing on this one target in the same spot. And that's what it took to bring this thing down. He said he was just taking fire right to the face and still moving. Well, they end up killing it. And there it is, just, laying there. So they've got choppers that start coming in because they had put out a line to wherever they were or whatever. And they noticed that Dan was dead, pretty much, it looked like. And they started putting out a medevac, and then they said it changed from a medevac line to something else. Anyway, so Dan is getting taken off, and they go to one helicopter. And then, well, before they did that, this one helicopter, he said, comes up over the ridge, and it's carrying a cargo net. And it lowers the net down, and they are told to put this thing inside the cargo net. So he said they tried to move it and stuff, and finally they got it positioned where they could get it in the net. And he said this thing stunk very bad. He said the smell was like worse than a skunk. He said it was like a corpse rotting, that'd been around for a while. He said it was really bad. And so they're going and getting this thing out of there. And the chopper takes off, and they go to another one, and it flies them out. So the helicopter takes the body to an airfield, a base, and it is loaded from there onto a C-130, and it's taken from Afghanistan to the United States. So this body was flown to America. All right. Probably to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Or I think it's Air Force. Anyway, that's probably where it was. Wright-Patterson. So this thing is somewhere here, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't imagine they would have left something like that in the hands of anyone else. That's for sure. And the C-130 pilot, okay, when he called in, he was talking about also this guy, the shooter. He talked about how this thing had 6 digits on its hands and feet and 2 rows of teeth in its mouth on the top and bottom. So it really fits the description of the Nephilim. And that's what got L.A. Marzulli and Stephen Quayle so intrigued and involved in this story, because they are big on the Nephilim thing. And I mean, it very well could be. I think that that's closer to being Nephilim than the Sasquatch and stuff. That's always been a theory, and I've never really seen the whole Nephilim thing. I can understand where it comes from, but I just don't think that, I know that there's different things out there, and I think there are two totally different, or there's a few Sasquatch type species out there. Anyway, we're not going to get into that, but the Nephilim thing, I mean, if it had 6 digits on its hands and feet, that's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So, anyhow, this was pretty interesting though, because when they took it, okay, there were people who saw it, and I knew somebody who was in Afghanistan around the time this happened. I graduated high school back in 2001, and back then, that was around the time my friends had joined up and were going to Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff like that. After 9/11, all my friends that had joined the military were off to Iraq. They didn't know that was going to happen after when we graduated high school, but that's where they all ended up going. Afghanistan or Iraq, one of those two. And I had lots of friends who went. And it was interesting, though, because this is how I heard about this to begin with. I had no clue about anything about the Giants of Kandahar until I heard about it from this dude. And this friend of mine, he asked me, he was like, have you ever heard of the Giants of Kandahar? I was like, what? I was like, no, what is that? And he told me all about it. And he said, yeah, man. He said, when I was in Iraq, or in Afghanistan, he said, one of the guys in my unit, he said he was at the air base, or at the airfield, where they flew the body in. I was like, what? He said, yes. He said he saw this thing. I was like, are you serious? And I ended up talking to the guy that he was friends with. And this dude told me the whole story about how he saw this thing. And this is really wild. I mean, it's really crazy. He was at the air base, and he said he was prepping a C-130 for pre-flight and doing pre-flight on it. And he said that their CO came in and told them that they had something like 2 minutes to vacate the area. So he knew something was up, and he said he could hear a helicopter approaching, and he could see something under it. He said, like something was underneath it. And he said that this thing starts coming up, and he's like, I gotta go get what's his face. And he went and got his bunkmate and was like, dude, there's something coming over here. They don't want us to see it. We gotta go check this out. So he went and hid behind a hangar or something, or some kind of structure, he said, and saw the helicopter landed by then. And he said there was a group of people hovered around this thing. And he said that one guy moved and they could see a foot. He said it was a huge foot. And he said he could clearly see 6 digits on it. He said it had 6 toes. He's like, I saw this thing. It was massive. And he said then he heard about the giant being killed. And he was like, that is what I saw. So I was like, that is wild. Yeah. So anyway, it's pretty neat. But my friend told me, it was like, yeah, man, there were rumors and stuff going around. I've heard it from a few other people. They're like, yeah, I heard about it when I was down there and all this other, yeah. I mean, it's a well-known thing that happened, but it was completely covered up. They completely covered it up. They told them in the debriefing to change their story from what actually happened to what they detailed them to record. I mean, it was just crazy. They covered it up completely. And there's guys who watched one of their brothers, one of their friends die right there, and they're covering up the reason why. So that doesn't sit well with these guys. I mean, these are people of honor. That does not sit well with people like that. So, what do they expect them to do? Stay quiet forever, even though they sign NDAs and stuff? Whatever, man. They said people deserve to know what's here on this earth with us. And I am totally with them on that. I totally believe that they are right. So, that's how I feel about it. Anyway, so that's how I actually heard about it to begin with. I didn't know anything about the story until I actually looked it up after my friends had told me about this. So, it was interesting. Another interesting thing about this, L.A. Marzulli, when he was actually studying this and stuff, he was at a conference, or he was going to a conference, and the driver of the car that he was taking happened to be a veteran. And he was ex-military, and he was telling him about, asking him about his background and all that stuff. And then he said, kind of tongue-in-cheek, just mentioned the giant story. And the guy was like, oh, yeah, I know all about that. We heard all about that. He said supposedly a giant got killed down there by a special forces team, and it's crazy. They all know about it. And this guy told him about this, offered him up this information about this without knowing anything about him, having talked to the shooter already. So he got both of these guys to come on to that show, the Watcher Series show, 2 witnesses to come on there and talk about it. So that's really interesting, I think. That gives it a lot of credibility right there. And then you've got the C-130 pilot. So that's 3 witnesses. The C-130 pilot told, how much it weighed. He said that the cargo was like 1,500 pounds total. But he said, take away the weight of the pallets and the rigging and all the stuff that they had it wrapped up with and all that. He said it was probably about 1,100 pounds. So that is crazy heavy. That's like a ton, almost. That's crazy. Like, what is it, half a ton? So, I don't know. I'm not good with any of that. You guys correct me whenever, feel free. Anyway, neither of these guys ever diverted from the story, neither of them. And this is another thing that's interesting about this. Okay, L.A. Marzulli found, he didn't find it. Some other guy did. I can't remember what the guy's name was. Bob something, I think. Up in Michigan. He was an outdoorsman. He found this artifact in the Great Lakes region. It was Lake Superior region of Michigan. And he found this artifact out there, and it was a spearhead, like 8 feet long. Not 8 feet, like 3 feet long. And I was thinking, like they said, because you could lash it to like a 7 or 8 foot pole. And anyway, it was about 8 feet long. And they said it weighed like 24 pounds or something, ridiculously heavy for a spearhead. And anyway, this thing was said to have been like a Nephilim spear thing. Like, the reason being is because, okay, there were pictures drawn of, like, ancient pictures from the Tuscarora, I think it is what it is. Something like that, people. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. But anyway, it was this Native American type legend, where they talked about the stone skin giants and their people would fight with them. And the weapons they used were these big old spear pike like things that they would take and, impale people with. Well, there's drawings depicted with weapons that look identical to what was found. And that's an interesting thing because the other weapons did not look like that, the ones that the men were using. It was these giants, these massive people that were depicted using these weapons, and they were the only ones. So it had to be something specific to them, I would assume. And that's what they said too. And the Nephilim are supposedly these people. And they also had legends of, well, actually all these Native Americans, lots of them, have legends of giants, and just like they do little people. But the legends of giants, a lot of them spawn from what they say star people came down and like did some type of interbreeding with earthly women, and then produced these giants that were, I guess genetic hybrids, basically, of humans and aliens, extraterrestrials or something. So that was kind of like the Nephilim theory for the Native Americans, a lot of these tribes. And they think that this spearhead was an artifact from these giants. So they got this thing analyzed, and the metal, it's strange too, because the metal that it was forged with, they said, originated from the Middle East. So it made its way to Michigan somehow from the Middle East. The metal did. And it was probably about 3 feet long. And they said that they would use it to impale up to 3 men at a time and hoist them in the air with it. And there is a picture of L.A. Marzulli and another guy, and the guy who found, I think the guy who, not the guy who found it, but the guy who was in possession of it. He saw it. They presented it to him at a conference and showed it to him at a conference, and he had a replica made of it. But this actual one, they were standing kind of like, single file, like sideways, and to show, holding this thing to show how it could easily, penetrate 3 people at one time. So, I mean, it was crazy. It really was. And the guy, the shooter, said that this was exactly what that giant was wielding when he came out of the cave. I mean, he had this stick, this spear, and it was just like what L.A. Marzulli had shown him, the actual Nephilim spear head that was found up in Michigan. So is that not strange? I mean, it was the same weapon, and they had already presumed this spearhead to be something of Nephilim descent. So it's interesting. And, he says, it gives more credence to his theories his findings, actually, about these elongated skulls that he found in Peru, which have come back to show Middle Eastern and European descent. Like, that's what they were descended from. And that's pretty much where this has also come from. And these skulls are giant. They're like elongated, giant skulls. The people that this head would fit on would have to be huge people. And they've, if it's all true, they have analyzed it and determined that that's where the origin is. I mean, this is interesting stuff because evidence is like mounting that Nephilim are, were a reality and could possibly still be a reality. Another really interesting thing about what these soldiers said, okay, when they got to Afghanistan, even the first witness, the shooter, talked about how they were instructed to shoot high, to aim high, to shoot at, instead of, it's usually 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. He said they were told to aim at a man's head, and 2 at a head level and 1 above the head. So they all thought that was really strange. And the second one, especially after this happened, because the first guy was there in 2002 when the thing occurred, the shooter. The second guy who had heard the rumors and the story and stuff, that was featured in the series, he was there in 2005, around 2005. So this was after the incident had already occurred. Well, this guy in 2005, he said that they received a lot of additional training for cave combat, to fight in caves. And of course, there are a lot of caves, and they said that these dudes were holed up in caves and stuff. But he said also they were told to shoot high, to aim high. He said they were told to do the same thing, to shoot twice at head level and once above a man's head. And he said that he thought that was really strange. He said then they started he started hearing the rumors about the giants and what happened. And he said that he put 2 and 2 together and then assumed that the military was probably pretty sure that there were more than one of them. So these giants, more than one of these giants exist, is what they thought. And they're probably right. I don't see how that was the only one. It seemed like it had been surviving there for a long time. And even the locals there would give them warnings, the troops. They would warn them to stay out of the caves. And one of my the one friend of mine, he actually told me that he had gotten a warning from a local too. And he told them to stay away from the caves. He said there are things up there that'll eat you. And the guys also said that the locals, when they got there, warned them that there were giants in the cave, giant cannibals in the caves, to stay away from there. They don't go up to the caves. The locals won't go. It's like they all know about these. It's common knowledge there that the giants exist. Like they know about these things being there. So they had to have been there for a long time if it's actually integrated into part of their culture. I mean, they've been around long enough to know not to go up there and mess with them. There's a good likelihood that they'll come out there and eat you. So, I mean, that all points to this being legitimate. That's the thing about this. You don't got kooks coming off the street talking about this. You've got guys who were in the military, soldiers, a Green Beret, special operations, special forces. You've got this kind of person talking about this, saying it is all true. So that, in my opinion, gives it a lot of merit. And I mean, you guys make up your own mind, of course. Of course, I'm not trying to influence what you think, but I am saying that that's what makes me think this is actually legitimate. That and the fact that I talked to someone who claims that they actually saw this. So, I don't know, but I mean, the pilot, he did disclose that he flew it to America. So that thing is here. It's here. It's in the States. There's so many rumors about these giants and these archaeological finds and stuff when they dig them up and I mean, they're being covered up and taken and put, like, they say they've got them all these skeletons in the basement of the Smithsonian and stuff like that. And they probably do. They've just, they don't want us to know these things. They don't want the proof to be out there. They don't care if the rumors are out there. They don't want the proof out there. They don't want us to be like, whoop, I got a giant skeleton and we're going to find out that this stuff is legit, this is real deal, and this is happening. I mean, that's what they're wanting. They're wanting to keep from happening. So that's why they do this. And I am sure that they took that skeleton. I mean, that body is probably preserved, the whole thing. And they've probably got it sitting somewhere cryogenically frozen, well preserved. They've been studying it. They probably know all about it by now. I mean, that's the thing, The soldier also talked about its fingernails, said that there was like a buildup kind of thing on them, kind of like a fungusy type stuff. But he said that it made them really long and pointed, like they were irregularly shaped because of it. I guess kind of like claw looking type nails. You guys know what I'm talking about. Kind of the way they make like witches' nails look, and the old haggard looking witches. That's the way that that's the visual that I got from what he was saying. But I'll be sure to link the video to the interview in the description for you guys, so you can watch it and actually see the guy tell the story, because he did a better job than I do. And anyway, I mean, he was there. But I'll do that, and I'll also attach some pictures on the end of this video, showing you guys the depictions of what was drawn, the illustrations of what these guys said. And it's really interesting, though, this whole thing. There's Appalachian giant lore. There's like a legend of the Appalachian giant that has like a 7-digit claw or something, like hand, 7 claws. And he left a big, long mark in a rock or something up there. That's like what the natives, the Cherokee, say. And he was like, I can't remember what the whole legend was, but that legend also does exist. I mean, it's really wild how they all have these legends about these giants. And this is just one of those things that they're trying to keep from everybody. They're trying to keep us from knowing this. And here we are finding it out on our own. That's what we're having to do with all of this stuff. Because they're not going to tell us about it, but it exists, so we can actually go out there and find it. And there's nothing they can do about it, because it exists. It's out there for us to find if we go looking. And if we don't go looking, then it's up to us to discern what we want to believe. But I'm going to go with yes on this one, because for some reason I think that these guys were being legit with it. No, I really do. And it's just a really insane thing. Like, I wonder, though, and I've never seen the answer to this question. What happened to the weapon? What happened to the shield and the pike that this giant had? Where did those go? Because those would be interesting artifacts to check out also. And especially to compare with the one that was found in Michigan. I would really like to know what happened to those. And nobody's asked that question. And I really wish I could find the answer to that. Maybe he did. I've never watched the actual Watchers video. I watched excerpts of the interview from it, but I've never seen the actual video, the actual episode. So I don't know that the interview had any more to it that I haven't seen, and maybe he did ask that question, but I would like to know. I mean, maybe it was just flown out with the body or whatever. I mean, I'm sure they didn't leave it behind. Surely not. But who knows? it doesn't sound like it was the best situation to be thinking clearly in. So anyway, I guess that's probably about all I'm going to say about this, guys. Anyway, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this. And I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say, because I know I've got people, veterans, and people who are in the military watching this. So let me know if you were in Afghanistan, or just if you have heard the rumor while you were in the military. Please let me know about it, because I'd be interested in knowing how many people had actually heard about this prior to it being publicized. So anyway, all right, guys, I really appreciate all of you. Please leave me a comment. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please share the video, like the video, do all that stuff too. And I'll be back with you guys really soon. So until then, stay safe and take it easy, everybody.